Welcome to Law Power Hour. It's a wonderful day in Detroit and southeastern Michigan. The weather's fabulous. So if you're outside, come on in and listen to us because I have a great guest. Today I have John DeAmpert with me. He's a young lawyer, about 15 years out in practice, if I counted correctly, and if I didn't, he'll tell us. Welcome, John.
Thanks for having me.
You know, this young gentleman is what we like to refer to in the community as a lawyer's lawyer. He graduated at the top of his law school class from Thurgood Marshall School of Law in Texas and went on to become a clerk for federal judges in Texas. However, he has a passion for an area called Detroit, so he came home. Is that true?
That's right.
Why don't you tell us where your office is and a little bit about your practice?
Well, thanks again for having me. My office is 25240 Losser in Southfield, or Suite 1. And just a little bit about me. I'm happy to be here. We've been in business for about 5 years now, and we're a full-service law firm. So we try to help folks in the areas of litigation, trials, appeals. Also, we help families in particular areas of business.
Now, today I ask you to talk with me and discuss the state of the law as it appears to you with respect to automobile negligence claims. And I understand you handle those, don't you?
From time to time, we handle some automobile negligence claims.
Do you handle first party and third party cases?
Yes.
Why don't you explain to our audience exactly what a first party claim involves?
Well, the first party claim is a claim from the claimant to the insurance company. So when you have a dispute between your insurance company as to a matter of coverage, you talk to your or bring suit against your insurance company. A third party claim is where you're going outside, you're suing someone else, or you're suing someone else's insurance company for particular coverage or protection based upon an accident.
Now, under the first party claim, that's a contract claim, isn't it? You have a contract with your insurance company.
Right. You have an insurance policy, a no fault or particular coverage for automobile accidents, and the insurance company, for whatever reason or not, decides not to provide coverage for something that you believe is protected or covered under your contract with your insurer. And at that point, if you can't get a resolution before litigation, then you have to bring suit against your insurer to make sure that they keep their promise and cover what's supposed to be covered.
Now, if I was involved in an accident, I came to your office, could I get a free consultation from you?
Sometimes, yes. Sometimes we do free consultations depending upon the nature of your particular concern. Sometimes we may charge a fee for a consultation. So it all really depends. In my personal injury cases, normally I do a consultation for free because it's sort of like talking to your doctor. I want to get as much information from you as possible so I can diagnose a problem and sort of provide a remedy to you. And if we can come to some sort of agreement from there, then we come to some sort of arrangement from that point.
So it's John Free if I call you. I can,
if you can get me,
yeah, if I can get to you and come in, I can have a free consultation.
Yes.
And if I'm involved in an accident and I want to talk to you about the accident, what are you going to tell me if I say I've been involved in an accident and I was working and I'm out of work and I need to go to a doctor because I hurt myself? What are you going to tell me, John?
I'm going to always tell you to go see the doctor. And it has nothing to do with the litigation. It has nothing to do with your case. Your first responsibility to yourself is to get well. The case will take care of itself. If you seek that responsibility to get well, to see your doctor, to let that doctor tell you what's wrong and what's not wrong, then at that point, we'll figure out where you are. As far as who's responsible, who should pay, who should we go after to get you made whole.
Okay, so rule number one, if you're giving a list of how things should be handled, is what?
Rule number one, go see your doctor. Go see your doctor. Let your doctor give you a full workup to figure out what's wrong with you and what needs to be healed and how can you get that healed. your treating physician, as we call it in my world, but your family doctor in your world, you want to go talk to that person because that person has your best interest at heart. That's somebody you can trust, and they'll tell you what you need to do, who you need to see, whether or not you need to have a specialist or not. Those are things you want to use your doctor as somebody who's going to tell you the truth so that you can get well. Because remember, the goal is to get well. The goal is to be healed.
Now, what's your second thing that you want me to do if I come to you and I say I'm employed?
If you're employed, I want to see all your records of your employment. I want to know what your job was, what you can and can't do now, based upon what you talked to about with your doctor. But I really want to know, what was your life like before this accident? What were you able to do? Tell me a little bit about yourself. How far did you go in school? What do you do at your job? Were you getting a promotion? Those kinds of things. Tell me what your life was like before this accident took you off that path.
Why is that important? Tell our viewers why it's important to take the time to explain what your life was like before an accident. Why is it important?
Well, I always tell folks who ask me these kinds of questions, and my clients sometimes, that I follow approach GIGO. Garbage in, garbage out, good stuff in, good stuff out. I'm only as good as the information that you give me. So you have to tell me the universe. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Tell me what brought you to that job. Tell me what brought you on that date in question when you had that accident. That tells me what it is that you need from a legal perspective. That sort of helps me give you a better understanding of my world if it comes to litigation, what to expect, and what kind of proofs we need to win.
Is it important for you to know where I live, who I live with, and how I live? In other words, how I carry out my daily life?
Yes, especially before your accident. I want to know what your day was like, because in order to show damages, so to speak, you have to show the court or show a jury what your loss was. What was your life like before the accident, and what was your life like after the accident? How did it change? So a lot of times, like you said, I want to ask, what's your day like? When you get up, what do you do? Do you work out? Can you work out now after the accident? What did you do with your family? All of these things matters, because if you lost that as a result of an accident and it's someone else's fault that you lost that, then we have to show that to a court. I'm a preacher's kid, and I always talk about doubting Thomas. That you have to show sometimes the harm. And if it's good enough for Jesus, it's good enough for a judge and a jury. People expect, and they have doubts. So you have to honor doubts with proof. And if you honor doubts with proof, then you give yourself the best chance to be made whole again.
Speaking of being a preacher's kid, one of the quotes I read was that you believe preachers and lawyers have a lot in common. Is that true?
That is true. That is true.
And what do you think, bottom line, is the commonality between preachers and lawyers?
Well, a preacher at his worst and a lawyer at his best are about the people, and they're about justice. Serving the community in which you live. And if you do that, then you help the community become great. You help the community become prosperous. You help the community become productive and whole. Because in the end, if there are no people in our community, we don't have a community, there's no one to serve. So lawyers are about justice and seeking individualized justice for our clients, and sometimes collective justice for our communities. And so we're charged with carrying that responsibility, that the Constitution lives in us and works through us. And we help connect the real Constitution to, the realities of being a citizen on the ground. And so as a preacher serves his or her congregation to make sure that they can meet the city of God, then lawyers work so that citizens and clients can see the city of Earth, or the city of Detroit, or the city of Highland Park, that they become true citizens and get the benefit of the bargain. They become a part of the franchise.
We're going to take a break for a minute and we'll be right back.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. Know your rights. Watch Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. here on WHPR, Detroit Live.
You know, I want you to tell our listeners a little bit about your background. Where'd you grow up?
I grew up downriver, so to speak. I grew up in Inkster, Michigan. I was born in Detroit, but grew up in Inkster. I went to schools in the Wayne Westland School District and graduated from Romulus High School. So I'm a Detroit metropolitan area kid through and through.
And your father was a preacher? And
My father was a preacher, and my grandfather was a preacher as well. Preached at Triumph. Back then now it's Triumph Church, but back then it was Triumph Missionary Baptist Church, and served there with distinction for many years. Got an opportunity to carry the suitcase, so to speak, with folks dedicated to the community and dedicated to making sure that folks had a strong spiritual life to help them deal with the everydays of being a citizen in our town.
And in certain areas in Southwest, it's kind of tough to be a citizen every day, isn't it?
Yes, it's still a little tough to be a citizen there, and so I learned early that it's important that everyone feels a part and connected to each other, because it gets lonely when things happen to you personally. And it becomes insular, whether it be an injury or someone denied you a contract that you believed that you were deserving, or whatever the ailment, whatever the civil ailment you're dealing with, it can be a lonely road. So I'm a strong proponent of community, whether it be group therapy, church, anywhere where you can connect with other people and know that you're not alone in the process.
And do you believe that television advertising really does not afford individuals that benefit?
Well, television advertising, you have 30 seconds to make a hit, and that's not always long enough to evaluate whether somebody offering a service is a good fit for you. See, I'm all about fit, and as you see in our campaigns and everything else, if it can't be said in a minute or 30 seconds, then it can't be said. But when you're talking about building a relationship with a lawyer or your pastor or anybody else, it is a relationship, and you're not going to get any results in 30 seconds or 1 minute. Litigation goes on sometimes for years. And so you have to have trust and you have to have fit. And if you don't have trust and fit with your lawyer or with your pastor or anybody who's doing something very important for you, you're not going to get the results that you feel because you may be on two different teams. So I'm not a fan of that kind of get out there. I'm going to win for you, that kind of thing. That's not how our firm is built. Our firm is a much more we have a much more holistic approach to reaching people, and not knocking that, but that's not what we do.
Okay, well, we all agree that when people are involved in accidents and they're injured, it's difficult for them in the beginning to understand what their rights are. Is that, you agree with that?
Yes.
So on that note, I asked you earlier about no-fault benefits. We call them first-party benefits. There are other parts to first-party benefits besides wage loss and medical. Would you expound on that for our listeners so that they understand some of the other areas?
Yes. For example, there are several areas of additional support that the No Fault Act provides. Example is maybe attendant care or replacement care for household services that you would have normally provided, but for yourself, or for others, but for your injury. So that can be available for you, and that's why what you asked me about earlier. That's why it's important that you tell us a little bit about the day of your life. How has your life changed? What were you able to do prior to the accident that you cannot do now? Because that's the universe of your claim. That's lost as a result of someone else's negligence. So that should be available to you.
So when someone comes into your office, do you explain to them how they can make a claim for these benefits?
Yes, we talk to them. We walk them through the statute, or we walk them through what's available to them based upon what they tell us. And so what we like to do is be pretty thorough in sort of the questions that we ask, so that the problems, we get an indicator of what the problems are, so we can provide some sort of map or solution to what it is they're asking for. Again, garbage in, garbage out, good stuff in, good stuff out. Your lawyer is only as good as you. If you trust your lawyer and tell your lawyer what needs to be told, then your lawyer has a good opportunity to provide you with good service.
Would you agree with me that the highest form of intimacy is communication?
Yes, that is the highest form.
So you really have to get to know each other when you're in that relationship.
It is a relationship. It's like a date. It's like any other meaningful connection in your life, or whether it be a long period or a short period of time. I mean, remember, you know this, but for the audience, attorney means stands in the shoes of. I am you for the purposes of litigation. I stand for you. I speak for you. So the more you tell me, the better I'm going to be as it relates to what it is that we're trying to get accomplished. So yes, we have to be good communicators, and we have to recognize that communication is key to our bond, our relationship, and achieving what it is we want to achieve on our plan.
Do you think insurance companies have a tendency to be arbitrary when it comes to minorities?
Insurance companies are arbitrary towards a lot of people, and minorities are no exception. Remember, folks out there, that everybody, this is America, so every business is out to commodify something, whether it be your life, whether it be your death, whether it be your employment, whether it be anything connected to you. We're out to commodify that part of your life. This is America. This is what we do. And that's why it's important that you have representation that you trust, representation you believe in, and representation that is connected to you and ready to solve the problem that you present. They're out to make money. And regardless of who it is, especially I am African American, I am a minority, so I am sensitive to this particular issue. Whether it be insurance rates or particular aspects of coverage, or how that insurance contract is construed or understood, it's very important that you are a steward over your rights. And Bible says wise person seeks counsel. So the first thing you ought to do is seek someone who staked their life into knowing that which you didn't need to know until the time arose. So it's very important because insurance companies have crafted laws to make sure that they make more money than what you get from them. They're going to win. That is their prerogative in every dispute. So you have to be ready to fight for your particular rights.
Insurance companies are going to make a profit to stay in business. That's a straightforward way of dealing with the issue, isn't it?
Definitely. That's what they want to do. And so we want them to honor their contract. There's something in the law that we say pacta sunt servanda. It is Latin for agreements ought to be recognized. And so when I have these kinds of cases, these are sensitive to me, a first party claim, because the insurance company has already promised that they will provide coverage. And if you fit into that particular clause of coverage, then they should provide it. And so we fight vigilantly to make sure that the insurance company does what they've already obligated themselves and promised to do, because a broken promise has no place when you talk to me.
Now, would you consider the first party benefits to be the lifeline for the claimant?
Yes, because the law already is set up to where everyone who has insurance coverage should get coverage immediately regardless of fault. That's what no fault means. It means when something happens in an automobile case, that everyone should be able to go to their insurance company and get their immediate needs met. Now, if you have something outside of your immediate needs where you can't get back to your life really quickly, then there's more avenues for you. But at that point, insurance companies are obligated to provide coverage.
Do you think accident victims are victimized by physicians?
Sure they are.
I'm asking you some questions that are kind of provocative, but these are things that I have to deal with every day, so I've got to ask you this.
I understand. I think that everyone has the capacity for good and evil, whether it be our profession, whether it be the medical profession, whether it be the political professions and actors in that particular guild. So I'm a believer of trust but verify. I'm a believer that you hold people accountable, and that you get sources and you get some sort of corroboration for the path that you're on. Don't be victimized. So
we have the sword of justice, and physicians have the pen of prescription. And they can write prescriptions and get people hooked on drugs. Does that concern you when you're representing the claimant?
Well, it does. It does. I guess the best thing to say without calling it advice, but the best guideline is to always get a second opinion in any type of diagnosis, whether it be legal or medical. You want to make sure that you're on the right path, because sometimes folks are motivated by supporting other institutions versus making sure that you get well.
Let's take that apart a little bit. Okay, why don't you tell me in your own words, I know you explained it, what you're talking about in terms of secondary gain.
Well, sometimes physicians have an incentive to prescribe medications that may not help you get whole, but may not necessarily hurt you either, or so the thinking goes, because they get credits for those types of, allegedly, credits for those types of recommendations or prescriptions. So in the end, it goes back to what we talked about before. Not everyone does this, but there's enough people out there doing it to where we should be talking about it and saying to folks, just make sure that you get a second opinion, a second set of eyes on your body, because you only have one, and you're responsible for making sure that you can keep it in good working order as long as we're here.
Now, when I did a review of your bio and did a little research, I found out that you had all kinds of opportunities in Texas and Washington and other places. What motivated you to come back to home?
Well, I love home. I grew up here. I was reared here. I believe in what Detroit in general and all the cities that surround Wayne County and Oakland County stand for. Um, it's like the motto of the city: "We hope for better things that shall rise from the ashes." I believe that Detroit and the neighboring communities in our state will rise again, but it can only rise again if good people come to help make the community work. So we must encourage each other to be strong, to be educated, to have services, to serve others. And when we do that, we make our lives better. We make a quality of living better. And when our quality of living is better, then look out.
Give us your telephone number, and then we're going to take a break so people can contact you. We've got a winner here, somebody who wants to help you if you've got legal problems.
Our number is 313-583-9529.
Thank you. We're going to take a break for a minute.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. Know your rights. Watch Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. here on WHPR, Detroit Live. Well, we're back on the air here. We're going to talk about another area of the law, has to do with third-party claims. Would you explain what a third-party claim is? We talked about first party. That's when I have a right to get benefits under my contract of insurance, right?
That's right.
And you're going to protect me
Indeed.
if I'm seriously injured. And please explain what a serious injury is, John.
Well, you talked about third-party claims, and what happens is that you, or a combination of you and your insurance company, will go after the insurance company or another person for what's called a serious impairment of an important body function. And what is that? That is some sort of injury that substantially affects your everyday activities. So it can be anything from a broken leg to PTSD, anything that seriously impairs your everyday activities or substantially affects your way of going about your life. And it goes back to what we talked about earlier. What is your life? And that's why it's important that we talk.
Hold on, we have a call coming in. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Great show, great information. And I was just wondering if perhaps the attorney can clear up a disagreement I'm having with a friend of mine. She was in an automobile accident, and she decided to call one of the big name people who advertise on television, and they said, "Oh, come in for consultation, whatever." And then they were going to send her to a chiropractor. And I told her that was kind of fishy, and chiropractors aren't real doctors, and told her to beware. She went anyway, and next thing you know, she's being sent to orthopedic surgeons and MRIs, and I think it's getting out of control. I just wanted to know what the attorney's views were about maybe the role chiropractors play in all this. Am I wrong? Are these real doctors, or should what should be done here, just because I'm worried about my friend. And I'll listen to your answer off the air if I could. Thanks for taking my question.
Thanks for calling.
Good question. My answer will be it depends. It depends upon the nature of the injury. If I have a knee injury and someone's sending me to a chiropractor to get well, then yes, I'm going to be concerned. If I have a spine injury, for instance, then it may be a question of how often am I going to the chiropractor? Are they recommending a fusion? What's going on? So again, it goes back to what you said earlier. Are you having a good, or do you have a good connection with your treating physician, your doctor that you would see, regardless of whether you had a litigation-based injury or not? Make sure that you get a follow-up, that all the treatment that you're being recommended from lawyers, from whoever, that has a basis in fact, that there's a true medical reason for that. Sometimes rehabilitation, some doctor will refer you to a chiropractor to help you stretch out. But again, it has to be based upon a medically documented injury. It goes back to what we talked about before about the law of doubting Thomas. I have to see it in the medical records first that there's some problem that requires some sort of rehabilitative method with a chiropractor versus not seeing it.
Okay. Would you agree with me that the majority of the lawyers who advertise also work with what I call medical mills?
Some of them do. Yeah.
Come on now, let's get out there. Come on.
Some people do. Again, remember that the goal for a lot of big companies who advertise, or a lot of big people you see on television, is to make a profit. Again, we're all here. If we're not for profit, we're here to make a profit. But at the same time, you just want to make sure that the person who's out to make a profit, who's working with you, has your interest at heart. Again, because the attorney is saying, I have your best interest at heart. And if you make an agreement with me, then I promise to have your best interest at heart. So yes, there are a lot of mills out there. There are a lot of people who turn you into a commodity. And so you want to make sure that you have a relationship with your attorney and that you're not a commodity of that person's firm. And that is a distinction. Again, we go back to fit. Do you fit? Are you working with somebody you like, somebody you trust? And so do your homework.
But here's the problem. If you go to one of these medical mills, they have their lawyers who start lawsuits to collect payments. You understand that? Would you explain what happens when a provider starts a lawsuit with respect to your no-fault benefits? I'm the victim.
Right.
I go seek out the services of somebody who says, go to this group over here and treat me. That group hires a lawyer to sue my insurance company. Can you explain that phenomena?
Yes, and so now you have a situation, it's hypothetical, but you have a hypothetical situation to
Well, no,
where
it's a reality, it's a fact.
So with that, though, setting those facts as they are, now you have a conflict between you and the insurance company in this case, and they may stop making payments or paying out on your claim. And so you may be out of luck, wrapped in a morass of litigation. And so again, it goes back to the threshold question that we deal with. Do you trust who you're dealing with? And do you know? Do you trust? Can you verify? And if you can, then that's the beginnings of a relationship.
But that's precisely my point. If I come to your office, I don't have to worry about a provider lawsuit, do I?
No, that's not how we're built. Again, everything changes with the facts. If you change one fact, then you may take me down a different avenue. But generally speaking, I don't have a team of doctors that I send people to. What I do generally is I say, go to your doctor and let's see what your doctor says. And I may have some people helping me to interpret what your doctor says, um, as to what your injuries are. And then there's the next step. Once the doctor says what the diagnosis is, now we try to figure out what's going to make you whole. Because again, a civil case in this instance is about making you whole. If we can't make you whole, in fact, we make you whole monetarily, and we ask, how long would it have taken to make you whole? If you can't work anymore, we get folks to help us figure out how long you would have worked, what you would have earned, and what that number is. And if we put some money in the bank today, how much do we need to put in the bank today to get you to post retirement age, to where the money you would have made had you not been injured?
So, in other words, if I come to your office, part of your services really involve planning for the family's survival.
Indeed, that's what it is. If everyone has a role in the family, and so if you're the breadwinner, and most of the time if they're a two-person household, you have two breadwinners. If there's a young person there, at some point they were going to contribute to the family. What's the family? So we want to make sure that we take care of the family unit, and that's what a civil case in this aspect does. It asks the question, what did the family lose? What did the claimant lose? And what can we do monetarily to put them in the best position to be made whole again?
We're going to be back in a minute, and I want to talk to you about statute of limitations for first party and third party claims and how you preserve your claims. Okay?
All right.
Are you in legal trouble? Are you in need of legal advice? Or just have general legal questions? Watch Law Power Hour and get your questions answered by experienced attorneys who are experts in their field. Know your rights. Watch Law Power Hour, hosted by Barry Keller, attorney at law, Tuesdays at 5 p.m. here on WHPR, Detroit Live.
Well, now we got back to the third party claim, and there's some things that you were explaining about planning. So you rely upon expertise of other individuals. Is that true?
True.
And what kind of expertise do you rely upon? Is it vocational experts? Is it financial experts when you're helping plan for a family when there's someone who's severely injured?
Generally speaking, yes. Especially if we're talking about true litigation. We're talking about third-party cases where you're trying to establish a serious impairment of important body function. A lot of times you're going to need a vocational rehabilitation specialist to tell us whether or not you can come back to work, or what jobs you'd be suitable for based upon what restrictions your doctor has laid out for you. Maybe you are totally impaired and can't do anything. But that's a combination of what your doctor is going to say about your prognosis for getting well, and then what the vocational rehabilitation specialist will say based upon various testing and interviews, with you. So that's one aspect. The other aspect is if you if you're not working and may not get back to work, then we may need an economist or somebody to tell us again what what we call work life expectancy is. How long, which means how long you would have worked at this particular job based upon your skill set until retirement, and how much money that could be. And then other aspects, we may have what we call liability experts based upon what kind of personal injury we're dealing with.
Let's stop for a minute and talk about liability. In terms of third-party claims, the issue of fault is still involved in the case. You and I are involved in an automobile accident. There's a dispute as to who caused the accident. So someone has to decide that, correct?
Correct.
What's the rule in Michigan? If I'm charged with fault and you're charged with fault, can I recover?
Yes, you can. I mean, we're a pure comparative negligence state. So you're going to recover the degree in which the other party is found responsible. So as long as you're not 100% at fault, there's some aspect of recovery. So you're going to be, if the other side is found responsible or some level of fault, there's going to be some level of recovery for you.
Now, what's the limitation period? The time limit for bringing a suit. I saw on your website, you talk about the statute of limitations in the corner, and you lay it out, but in words that our viewers will understand. If I'm involved in an accident today, it's the 31st of May, 2016, and I'm an adult, how long do I have to bring a lawsuit?
Generally speaking, 3 years. So you have 3 years to bring this claim. Again, you want to get ahead of the ball. You want to talk to your doctor and get the ball rolling immediately. And most of the time, the facts are going to dictate that you do so, meaning that you've been injured in an accident, you're going to go see a doctor. And ultimately, because if you can't work or you've lost some sort of services or your life has been impacted because of this accident, you're going to seek out some help. So you have 3 years to do that. So you want to make sure that you get to your doctor and get some counsel as soon as possible, because the clock starts running the moment what we call the claim arises. And the claim arises on the date that you have the impact.
First party claim. If I'm involved in an accident and I've got to make a claim with my own insurance company, how long do I have to perfect the claim?
You should bring that claim immediately. You should bring it immediately.
Well, how long do I have to make the claim if I have to? I know I have to report it, correct?
You got to report it. So for that instance, I say, don't even think about the statute of limitations. Bring that claim immediately because you have a contract. Again, you don't want to rely on the 6-year contract statute of limitations. You don't want to rely on any other particular narrow statute of limitations for coming or bringing a claim, a contract-based claim. You want to bring that claim immediately because they have an obligation to support you and they have an obligation to fulfill their promise.
Okay. Well, bringing the claim doesn't necessarily mean starting a lawsuit right away, does it?
No, it doesn't. So again, so that good point, because you want to make sure that you bring that immediately, because that on some level will, I don't want to say toll the statute of limitations, but that will tell us when the statute of limitations begins for you. Because if you remember, on a first party claim, you're suing basically on a breach of a contract. So when is the contract breached? The contract will most likely be breached when you can't get resolution on your claim.
Okay. Taking it to another level. I submit everything to the insurance company and they're paying my claim. The statute doesn't run while they're paying the claim, does it?
Correct.
I get a letter of rejection from the insurance company, and what happens?
The statute begins to run. So because you're now put on notice that some type of benefit or promise that the insurance company you expected them to execute or do, they're no longer doing. So the clock starts for you. So again, when that happens, you don't want to wait. You want to make sure that you get the kind of help you need to preserve your rights. Because again, this whole scheme was decided before you got into it. Claimant, client, citizen. Other people went to the legislature and designed a scheme with you in mind. So if the game has already been set out and the rules have already been set out before you got into the game, you want to make sure that you get somebody who knows what's going on immediately.
Now, I know you went to school in Texas, but Texas is also a no-fault state, isn't it?
They are.
And you studied no-fault laws in Texas.
Yep.
Did you know that Michigan modeled their no-fault act after Texas?
You know what? I do know that. You reminded me, yes.
Yeah, and that's an important fact for our viewers to know. So if I want to get a hold of you and I want to talk to you, am I going to find you in your Detroit office or your Southfield office?
You're going to find me in Southfield. We're in Southfield. Our office I'm John DeAmpert of DeAmpert & Hawkins, the DeAmpert Law Company, PLLC. We are at 25240 Losser, Suite 1, Southfield, Michigan, 48033. And again, our number is 313-583-9529.
And in terms of injury claims, you also handle other injury claims besides automobile accidents, don't you?
Yes,
For example, do you handle slip and fall claims?
we do.
And we're not going to spend the day talking about slip and fall today because the law is kind of complicated.
Yes. Yes, it is. And again, you got a few things going on here, and I want folks to sort of know this. We talked about citizenship from the beginning, and you asked me about why I think lawyers and preachers are important to the community. You got to get involved because who makes the laws? Companies, concerned citizens, interest groups, folks interested in the outcome of a process get involved. They go to Lansing, they lobby their representatives and legislators, and they get things done. Medical malpractice, those laws are the result of a lobby from lots of doctors. Tort reform, lots of companies. So citizens, each and every one of us, we have an opportunity and a responsibility to get involved beforehand. I tell a lot of people that the best time to get a lawyer is when you don't need one, because then you have somebody you can talk to if something happens, or you have somebody to help you navigate through particular problems that will arise if you engage in some sort of activity, whether it be petitioning the government for a government contract, or trying to negotiate a particular contract with your insurance company. Whatever it is, wise people seek counsel. And so it's our responsibility to get involved and make sure that our rights as citizens are protected, because everyone else realizes how important it is that you have a legal process that works towards your best interests.
Now, I understand one of your strong suits is the art of negotiation, and you just gave us a wonderful example of your skill set. What areas do you act as a negotiator in?
I say all of them, whether it be litigation all the way to business planning, whether it be civil cases, criminal cases. We're a full-service law firm, so we deal in a lot of problems or challenges that people may have interacting with society. And so life is a negotiation. That's my opinion. And if life is a negotiation, then you need a plan. You need a strategy about which you negotiate or interact with people. You have to know what it is that you want and realize that other people may want different things. So if you understand that people may want different things from the beginning of your process, then you may be able to craft out a path towards getting what you want. So the first thing you want to realize is that other people want stuff too. So you can't make decisions in a vacuum.
Thank you for coming today. That was a wonderful way of concluding. I appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
It will have you back again.
Appreciate it.
WHPR TV is now on demand. Catch us when you want, how you want, where you want. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Watch your favorite TV shows on demand. And be sure to
Download the WHPR app.
We're now on demand at your demand. WHPR TV Detroit On Demand.com, a Watkins Broadcasting Company.